The Cadillac is a very good two-part episode. The main story behind the catalog, it came from a real-life story involving Larry David, whose father was president of the condo area he lived in Florida. And then he bought him a Lexus the one day. And he's pretty sure that got, like, everyone else in the condo, like, buzzing and, like, from jealousy that he has such a nice car or whatnot. And it just led to controversy and them trying to, them jealous and them trying to, make up some crap to get him kicked out of office, basically. Which I want to be careful how much I say, because I am doing part 1 and part 2 in separate episodes. But that's basically where the main storyline came from. So how does Jerry going to come about getting his father an expensive car? Well, it wasn't a Lexus he bought, but of course it was a Cadillac. So the story here is Jerry had done a show in Atlantic City. And while in Atlantic City, he got like a very, very big paycheck. Money that, even like Kramer was shocked to see that he made. And of course, Elaine as well was shocked to see how much he made. And that kind of caused Elaine to spark a little bit of like interest. She seemed to get a little like, she seemed to want a little more from Jerry after finding out that Jerry has money. But of course, it was weird because they teased it in this 2-part episode. But then it went nowhere after that, even though, like, after a while, Jerry basically didn't, return the favor, basically. He didn't return, the looks, the desires that Elaine was having. So with all that money, Jerry joked to say he was going to donate to charity, which he's like, yeah, right, not going to happen, which is definitely not Jerry. But then he said, what I'm going to do? He goes, I think I'm going to buy my father a new car. He said, my father's always wanted a Cadillac. I think I'm going to do it. So he devises that plan. While that's going on, Elaine, George sees Elaine, who was out having lunch with her friend Katie. And they're talking, and then George happens to be, be around, and he sits down with them and talks to them. He kind of remembers Katie, and they start talking. And then she mentions how she thinks George is funny. He's like, and then she starts acting a little odd, like too bad. But after he finds out that she finds out he's engaged, and he's like, "Why is that?" And he says, she says that, well, I was going to set you up with. I have a friend I have who I could set you up with, who likes your type, bald, quirky men. And he comes to find out that it's none other than actress Marissa Tomei. To which George was like stunned and like just blown away that a famous, beautiful woman like Marissa Tomei is into men like him. And he was just obsessed over it. He was watching different Marissa Tomei shows like throughout the whole 2-part episode. He even was, Susan even noticed it, and she's like, you better stop watching those episodes. You gotta be worried that you have a big thing for her or something like that. But of course, George it drove him nuts, and he even told Jerry about it later. While Jerry was talking about the Cadillac, George was talking to him about Marissa Tomei. Then George just starts like obsessing over it. Like, he's calling Elaine, saying, call your friend Katie, and he's like, I know I'm engaged, but what if I just had a cup of coffee with her? And then, they're basically telling George, no, don't do this, you're engaged. Like, would you tell Susan you did this? No. Obviously, again, he, throughout the whole season, you're having George having doubts, that, I think I made a mistake with this. But then, now he has a woman like Marissa Tomei, who's exactly what he's looking for. Someone who seems completely out of his league would be the right fit for him. So then finally, Elaine caves. She tries to call Katie. Katie's in the hospital, unconscious. George goes, literally, doesn't care at all for her well-being, is sitting there talking to her unconscious about, Marissa, But of course, she's unconscious. He can't do a thing about it. So then, I forgot how it was. Well, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So then, of course, we'll have to wait till the next part to continue on that story. But what we also got is a story with Kramer, who was who seemed to have been having some issues with the cable guy. So the cable guy kept coming, wanted to with an appointment that Kramer had about something with his cable, but Kramer, of course, kept ignoring the cable guy like he wasn't there. And the reason why was because 10 years earlier, the cable company said, they would be coming between 9 and 1. They never showed up, and then they after their appointment, so Kramer's been holding a grudge against them ever since. So it's been a game of cat and mouse of the cable people trying to get a hold of Kramer. Trying to get a hold of Kramer when Kramer's just trying to give them a piece of their medicine of what they did to him 10 years earlier. Which is a little, petty, but it's true. But he would be listening out on the whatever they would call him. Kramer would act would realize that they're just outside his apartment building at the payphone, crap, lose my train of thought here. But yeah, he'd be outside the payphone, and Kramer would just talk trash and hang up on them. I think there was a time where a construction worker called and it was one legitimate business, but then Kramer thought it was just Nick, the cable guy, trying to cause things up again. Well, anyways, so that's all the side stories. Getting back to the main story here now. So Jerry shows up in Florida, surprises his parents. He bought his dad in the end. It is let me see here. It is a 1996 Cadillac Fleetwood. That was, in 1996, was worth about $36,995 according to IMDb. And of course, at first when I did this, I'm thinking, Jerry, why'd you do this? It was a nice gesture of him, but every time Jerry does something for his parents, they always say, oh, it's too much. Oh, it's too much. Mainly his mom. I never once heard her say thank you. She immediately just goes, oh, I can't do this. It's too much, Jerry. It's just woman, accept something he gave. Say thank you. Don't be telling him every time it's too much. I can't believe Jerry would have had the guts to actually do this. But of course, Morty was very, thrilled and very, ecstatic to have such a great gift from his own son. But then, of course, who happens to turn up also to see the Cadillac at the same time? Jack Klompus. Yeah, that Jack Klompus, the one who couldn't get the raincoats out of the garage. The same guy also who originally owned the astronaut pen. Yeah, that guy was a pain in the butt in the Seinfeld side. So, obviously, he starts saying stuff because Morty offered to take Jack for a ride in the Cadillac. Which, Jack's you think I've never ridden in a Cadillac before? You think it's stuff a big shot now or whatnot? Basically, just trying to talk down on Morty for being all excited. So, of course, Morty, he's the president of their condo area. And they had a board meeting or whatnot. And then Jack starts up with this stuff saying that Morty's been, obviously he's jealous, but he's saying how Morty, and he's also, I think, the vice president, I believe it is also. But he's saying stuff how Morty Seinfeld is stealing funds, from the condo board to afford his Cadillac. Which Morty's saying, that's not true, my son bought it for me. And this was the first of several times throughout both parts where someone made a joke. Even Jerry's mom said too, doubting that Jerry really had that much money. There is actually another episode, it might be the Bottle Deposit, which is on the next Discord, sometime coming up in the last 2 seasons, where there's a story there where it's everybody, Jerry's parents were in town and they were doubting him that the fact that he even had the money he has. Because, I guess he was trying to buy the Cadillac back. I guess his dad had sold the Cadillac to Klompus, but Jerry was trying to buy it back, but then Klompus drove it into the swamp, And they had these like back and forth negotiations. Jerry kept saying he had a show. He would fly down to Florida, fly back, telling his parents who were in town at the time that he had a show. But it was some crazy back and forthness. But anyways, so this is another reason I came on that rivalry. So Columbus, again, it starts convincing people that, and people are, Columbus, Jerry's mom did, a lot of people were just doubting that Jerry really had that much money. So, of course, they're then saying that, they want to impeach Morty Seinfeld. Of course, in the last scene of this episode was they were discussing the impeachment back at the apartment with back at the condo, and they're saying basically how it's they're told by a neighbor it's like even odds basically, about who it's for impeachment and who is against impeachment. There is one person, though, that they have to impress still. Oh, what's it called now? To basically get her to not to be against impeachment. And let me see here. Just double checking the script again because I can't remember if they mentioned it. Let me see here. Oh yeah, it isn't said who it is. Well, it said it was Mrs. Choate. Who, of course, who's Mrs. Choate though? We'll have to find out next in part 2. Because of course they're saying that they're going to invite her over tonight. But the neighbor told them, basically the inside scoop of where the votes lied at. Said that Mrs. Choate was at some party that obviously. The Seinfelds were invited to because they're being frowned upon because Columbus is using the Cadillac as the excuse to basically try to get Morty under the fire for basically he's Columbus is vice president. He wants to be president, and also he's just jealous of the Cadillac as well. But that's part 1 of the Cadillac episode. In part 2, we got to figure out, will Morty Seinfeld get impeached? Has his Cadillac caused much more drama than Jerry thought it would? Of course, will Elaine still be after Jerry? What will happen with George and Marissa Tomei? And also, will Kramer and the cable guy learn to get along? We'll have to find out next in part 2 of the Cadillac. So guys, once again, what were your thoughts on the Cadillac episode, part 1? Make sure your thoughts down in the comments section below. Do you also like Morty Seinfeld's Cadillac? It's a very nice car, by the way. Be sure, as always, guys, to slap a like on the video, subscribe for more content on my channel, and follow me on Twitter as well, at DemandAirboy93. Till then, guys, I'm catching out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your night, and peace out, everybody.